Welcome, everybody. It's time once again for the next chapter with Charlie Hedges, as he explores turning the page on his life and yours.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the next chapter with Charlie. My very special guest today is Rhonda Britten, who was on the show just a few months ago. But since that time, Rhonda has become a personal favorite as well as a fan favorite of the next chapter with Charlie. Rhonda Britten is a best-selling author and founder of the Fearless Living Institute, which is all about empowering individuals to conquer their fears. Now, Rhonda's own story of overcoming adversity is a powerful and successful reminder of how anyone can transform their life and achieve success. Now, catch this. I want to tell you something Rhonda wrote about herself. For 20 years, my life was a wreck. I was an alcoholic who attempted suicide 3 times. And don't forget those lovely DUIs and the week I was in jail. I'm laughing because I've seen that same movie. Yet, however, I am an Emmy Award-winning life coach who has been on Oprah and written multiple best-selling books. In Rhonda's post-trauma years, she has hosted, catch this, more than 600, I'm sure the numbers increased now, more than 600 reality TV and much, much more. Well, enough from me. Let's bring on Rhonda. Rhonda Britten is
Hey,
such a
Mr.
treat.
Charlie. It's so good to be here, Charlie. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, well, you're the best. You are, you could be like my second Terry Hershey. I have a Terry Hershey. Who comes on anytime I don't have a guest. I call up Terry and says, "Oh shit. Okay. Oh, come on." And he does this great show. That would be Rhonda Britten. Rhonda, I don't have a guest. And can you show? Not really. Oh, come on, Rhonda. Okay. Let's do it.
Probably. I'm a sucker. So probably I'd say yes.
You're a people. You want to take care of people. Now,
You know what? I love, let's put it this way, Charlie. I love good conversation. I love that. And the other thing I love is that I love helping people, supporting people, encouraging people, guiding people to understand how amazing they are. Because people focus on what's wrong with them, and I don't see that at all.
oh, I love that. I love that. And and we're going to talk about aging because you want to know how I've learned to age. If you can call 76 aging, but it's a lot older than 25. But I've got a question about life that I think I want to start really rather philosophical. That's my bent is I go philosophical. And at the introduction, I wrote about your successful battles with alcoholism. And as you remember, I too am an alcoholic. I've got 26 years of sobriety, except
37.
37.
37.
It took me 28 to get 26 years. It took me
Mm.
28 because I had a 2-year interruption at about a decade in that I had to go back out and drink again. And then I had that 2-year interruption. And now since then I've had whatever years it comes to 26 years of sobriety. But you got 37?
Yes. Yes, I got 37.
Oh, that's amazing. So tell me, I found alcoholism to be not alcoholism and addiction in general. All the shit that I was addicted to and continue to be addicted to, different things in life, maybe not drugs, but certain things in life I'm addicted to. What did alcoholism and addiction teach you about Rhonda Britten?
Oh my gosh. Well, alcohol actually gave me permission to feel. It gave me permission to be angry. It gave me permission to feel all the feelings that I didn't feel before then. So, why did I drink? Well, I obviously drink to get rid of pain and suffering. You think it's for fun, but it's really pain and suffering. But when I drank, I was not a happy drunk. I was not like, oh, no, I was like, and then I would throw things across the room, I'd be like, and I had all that sadness and all that anger inside me, but I was taught, you don't feel. Like I was raised to not feel. And so drinking was the first permission that gave me permission just to feel. Now, obviously, it was unhealthy. Don't get me wrong, but it was really valuable for my growth and transformation because I all of a sudden now, instead of just stuffing my feelings and pretending I don't have any, I had all these feelings. And yes, I got embarrassed and ashamed for acting out those feelings, but at least I felt something. At least it was something. I was feeling something. And that perpetuated, that started the journey, I should say, on, well, how can I, because I'm not an alcoholic. I mean, because I never drank to ever get drunk. Never. There's never been one time in my life I said, let's go get drunk. Never. What's with me is that I drank and I didn't know if I was going to black out on drink 1 or drink 5. And I blacked out and I didn't have a problem with blacking out. I always say what makes me an alcoholic is most people who are not alcoholics black out and go, whoa, I better be careful. I don't want to do that again. I don't want to wake up and not remember. Right. And I'm like, I guess that's what happens.
And sometimes it's good not remembering because that means I probably did something I don't want to remember.
Right. And all of that, the after effects of me and my anger and my crying and my blacking out, eventually, and this was, obviously a series of, might be similar to you, but a series of events had to happen for me to finally even think about quitting, right?
Of course.
And of course I knew I had a problem for 5 years before I ever quit. And I think that's similar. Many people think maybe I have a problem, maybe I have a problem. But that anger and that acting out and me on a quest to figure out my feelings and to control them and to, because it wasn't about managing at the time, it was controlling them, right?
Right.
Or getting rid of them because, oh my God, I mean,
Great
I knew
distinction.
Right? It's just like I had to get rid of them. That set me on a journey, a spiritual journey, a philosophical journey, psychological journey, right? Like I read and I did so much growing while I was drinking. And there was those two parts of me, right? One was this girl who wanted to grow and yearned and believed in God and everything. And then the other person who was just so stuffed down that drinking gave her this permission to feel. And I wanted to feel alive. And so those two juxtapositions forced me eventually to decide, and I had to decide, well, did I want to actually feel from a place of health? Did I want to take responsibility for my feelings? Did I want to clean up the mess I just made for the last how many years? Or did I want to keep acting out? And eventually people started leaving me, girlfriends, friends that were my, girls that were friends.
Nice. So you were
right. Yeah. And they just dumped me. One friend, we went to a stand-up comedy club together. And of course I'm drinking and I'm a heckler. I was a heckler when I drank. And by the way, I thought I was a hysterical heckler. Okay. I thought I was hysterical. Okay.
You didn't realize you were obnoxious.
No, I thought I was hysterical because when you're drinking, you think you're just so hysterical. Right. And the comic asked me up to the stage. And I thought it was because I was hysterical, right? Well, while I went up to the stage, my friend left. And it was like 2 a.m. And I had no car. And she just left me there. And I remember walking home. It's lucky I'm alive from that. Because, right, I was in a skirt about, and heels this high and walking down. Right. And that was one of a series of people that just cut me off. And I had to start taking a hard look at, because before I used to blame them, and then so many did it, I was like, well, maybe it's me. And that was eye-opening for me. Like, right? Because when you're an alcoholic, or when I'm an alcoholic, it's everybody else's fault, right? It's everybody. They don't get me. They don't get me. They don't get me. They don't get me. I don't get me, right? And finally I had to be like, oh shit, it's me.
So tell me, you know what, I'm curious, as we've learned, you learned accountability, you learned all that, but you were talking about feelings, not feeling. Do you look at your life now in your decision-making process? Are you in your decision-making process, are you more cerebral or more of a feeler, or is there a combination? How do you bring your feelings into your logical process now?
Well, how I make decisions is by spirit, by God. By
Okay.
I do what God tells me to do.
Okay.
So, and then I wrestle with the feelings or the thoughts in the process of executing what God told me to do. Right? So God tells me always something really big and crazy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I can't do that. And he always is like 2 miles away. And because I am devoted, I will do it. I will do it. But the journey to quote unquote get me to do it, right, is where my growth is, right? Is where the wrestle is between my mind, my heart, right? And it is the wrestle. Now, I know I'm going to do it. And I know that if I'm having feelings like me not wanting to do it isn't an option. I'll give you a simple example. I used to, pre-COVID, I traveled 70% of the time speaking, okay, all over the
Oh,
world.
did you? Did you? Okay.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, speaking is my superpower. And when people would ask me, well, do you really like to do all that traveling? I'd go, that's not even a thought in my brain. I'm going to speak. Traveling is part and parcel of doing that. It's
Yeah.
like brushing
Just
my
part of the
teeth.
gig.
It's
Yeah.
part of the gig. But most people separate. Well, I don't want to travel, so I guess I can't. I don't like traveling, so I don't want to. Go and speak in London. It's
Besides
like,
that, I can't speak, so no one's going to invite me to London.
yeah, yeah, that might be true, but probably right. But people dissect every part of the tasks or their journey and are deciding whether they like it or not. It's like that's not the point. The point isn't do I like everything? The point is am I doing it? What am I doing it for? And what's the point? What's the service of it? So people are deciding based on their feelings um way too often and about things that are literally irrelevant and do not need that level of decision making. So people are cutting themselves off from opportunities all the time because I don't like to do, I don't like to walk over there. I don't like to drive. I don't like to, it's like, what? That's not even part of that's part of the whole package. If you
Yeah.
want to go to London, you got to get on a plane.
I got a question that goes back a little bit because what you just said makes perfect sense, but there's something that I know our listeners are pondering, as do I. You say, I make decisions based on what God tells me.
Hmm.
How in the world do you know what God tells you?
Oh, well, me and
I
God
mean,
go
I'm
way
a,
back.
I'm a strong believer as well, but
Yeah.
so I get, I'm not coming from like this atheistic viewpoint. I'm coming from a very providential, creator moved Christian, old mystical Christian approach. But I'm curious, how do you hear the words of God?
Well, before I say that, let me just sparse out decision making. God doesn't tell me whether to eat, a French fries or whether to eat, a salad, right? God's not telling me like, hey, now's the time to go to the restroom. Like
Yeah,
God's not telling me
yeah,
these things,
yeah.
right? So I'm not saying that God is directing every single second of my life, even though I
Okay,
do believe He is. It's not like I'm hearing every single moment, right?
okay, okay.
But I also I have a I God talks to me. I hear things. Some people don't hear things. Some people hear, some people don't. I hear things. And so I hear instructions. And my work, really, if you want to go back to, my work is fearless living. I help people master fear. One of the fundamental reasons that I probably am here doing fearless living is I struggled with what is God versus what is fear. Like, is it voice of fear? Is it voice of God? Is it my intuition talking? Because I think intuition, God, spirit, muse, source, universe, all of that is the same thing. You can call it whatever you
Okay,
want.
that's very now see right there. That's very helpful because I get these senses of things, and I sense it's an intuition, but
Yep.
it's a spirit, it's a soul, it's an intuition, and they're not that frequent. It's not that common for me to say God is really putting this on my heart.
Yeah. Yep.
It is something, but however, when it happens, it is totally illogical, but I know.
Yes, that's right.
I know this was the voice of God speaking to me, not to the world, not to
Yep.
anybody else, but
That's right.
this was the voice of God speaking to me, and I'm using the word feeling a lot in my old age, and I feel it. I feel it
Yeah.
from a very cerebral person that's turning into very much of a feeling person.
Oh, that's good.
Oh my
That's
God,
good.
yeah, it's
That's good. I
incredible.
like that, Charlie. I really like that. And you're bringing up a really good point because some people hear, some people feel, right?
Right?
Some people sense, so people get information from source, universe, light, God, spirit, intuition, very different ways. And I think that unless we tell people that, just like me, if you would have told me when I was drinking that you heard it by sense, I would have been like, oh, I guess I have to hear it from sense. Right. So if I would have heard a voice like I do, I would have been like, well, that can't be God because Charlie told me it's sense. Right. So I think it's really,
Oh,
right. I think it's
oh,
really important that we all recognize that we all have a unique relationship with soul, spirit, God, etc. And some of us feel it, some of us, get a body sensation, some of us hear it, some of us just have a knowing. We just know. We just absolutely know, right? So we all get it maybe differently. The point is that when you get it, that you say, got it, I hear you. Now, that doesn't mean let me step back. I was giving the sermon at a church one time, and this man came up to me and said, well, I don't get it. God told me to open my business, and it ended up being 3 businesses. God told me to open this business, and it failed. And I said, oh, you misunderstood God, because God will tell you what to do. He never tells you the ending. And what people confuse with God's message is that it's going to be successful. God never said it was going to be successful. God said open the business, right? And so your job is to take that instruction, open the business, and then you have to become who you are meant to be to have a successful business.
that is
Not that God,
beautiful, Rhonda. Do you know how beautiful that is? That's really perfect. That's perfect because what you're saying. When I say feeling, that's not the only way. It can be reading, it can be hearing, it can be
yep,
something you know, and not even necessarily reading the text. Reading scripture is very helpful for me, and I get insight from reading scripture. But sometimes I could be reading something else in another book, and it hits me, and I say, "Oh my goodness,
yep,
this has
yep,
been kind
yep.
of germinating in my soul for a long
Yes,
time." So
yes.
let's go on to. Oh, I've got this question. I want to get into fear, but I do want to talk just a, just a
Follow
little
that
bit.
spirit, Charlie. Just follow that spirit. You ask me whatever God's telling you to.
Well, this is me telling me. I'm not going to blame. I'm not going to. I'll give God. If it's really cool, it was God. If it sucks, it was typical Charlie. Um, um, but we both are into mystical Christianity. In 2020, I did a deep dive into the late Christian medieval mystics, which was Teresa of Avila, John of the
Yes.
Cross, Julian of Norwich,
Mm.
Francis of Assisi. Bonaventure is like my hero. I'm writing a book on Trinity right now that I'm actually really writing called A History of Love. And before the beginning, there was love, and
Yes.
that is the essence of source, and the Trinity is, to me, is the very essence of everything, and that is what I got from the mystics, and so I take this, and as I've read on Sufi mysticism and Christian mysticism, the practices are identical, the theology is totally different. But the practices are very experiential. It's experiencing God. And that's what I find in mystical Christianity. It's an experience of going deep into God and experiencing godness with God, and then life through this experience of God. How does that compare to your experience in mysticism?
Yeah, I mean, I just like to think of it this way. God is living itself as me, right? It is part and parcel
Beautiful.
experiencing itself through
Yep.
me.
Right.
I always say, well, God wanted to know what it was like to be a blonde, blue-eyed girl from, little town in Upper Michigan whose parents died in a murder suicide, and is an alcoholic, and right. I haven't experienced that life. I got to experience that life, right? So I love the mystics. Also have studied those lovely mystics, and I love what I love about them the most is the devotion. I love their devotion. And, I just find that is missing. I feel like people now get devoted to a religion rather than to God
Oh
itself.
my
Right?
God. Oh. Well, and that's why religion is dying.
Yes,
That's
because
why religion
because
is
God
failing,
doesn't.
because it's about itself. It's not about the master.
Yeah, and God doesn't need religion. But I also believe there is a place for religion.
Yep.
I'm not somebody who advocates no religion, because I do believe that religion is a place that if you're curious and if you want to know more, I mean, it's a doorway, it's an opening. So I'm not an advocate for getting rid of religion. I actually think we need religion. I think we need all different types of religion so people can find their place where they can go to quote unquote school to start having an experience of God. Where it goes wrong is then at some point it becomes about the church rather than God,
Yeah.
right?
And it
And
becomes about being right.
yes, correct. And instead that pure heart goes into that religion because it really just wants to know God. And so that's why when you go in there wanting to know God, and if the church you go to or the synagogue you go to, et cetera, isn't of a high mindedness of source itself, then eventually you're going to feel cut off from source being in that church, right? Being in that synagogue. But we want to, the reason it was formed, there's always, for most things, there's always a reason it started. Is the reason it started is pure. It was pure. It was a pure reason that, the Christian faith started, right? There was a pure reason why Catholic started, right? There's a pure reason. So
It was
we
all
want to,
beautiful in the beginning.
yeah, because we want to tap into that beauty, right? We want to tap
Yeah.
into that purity.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love the devotion. That's what I really love. When I hear, they would just they would just like sit in a room and just be hanging with God. It's like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it took them all a while. It was funny, like Teresa of Avila, who is, wrote The Interior Castle, which are the
Yeah.
7 stages of prayer. And she writes that she had 20 years in the convent of just terrible experience of prayer. She
Yeah.
didn't, and then God appeared to her, and she turns it around and she becomes the person of that for forever of prayer. But she went through 20 years, and it took her 20 years to get to this point. So it's not like an automatic, I'm going to go in and have this
No,
deep and
no,
wonderful relationship with God. Like
no.
any relationship, it has to be developed. And
Yeah.
and God needs to do his way. So thank you for that. That's cool. Now what I'm telling, because I'm dying to ask you some fear questions.
Ooh, okay.
Um, I've got I have a friend, Barry Hershey.
Okay. Uh-huh. I have a friend. Yeah.
I do have a friend, and I just we talk doggone near daily almost, and that's only recent. We never used to talk that much, but we've been friends since '87.
Wow.
So we've got like we've got like 86, we got 40 years of friendship. And he writes on dance. He loves dancing and loves talking about dance, and we all need to dance. And he has a daily post called Sabbath Moment. And he's been writing on dance. And he wrote this and he wrote this line that I like really a lot, Rhonda. And I thought it would appeal to you. And he says, It's not that we choose to dance because, it's difficult to dance. It's not that we choose to dance so much as we choose to give up being afraid. I loved that. And then I was thinking that, fear, I don't know that fear is something that drives me, that fear is a word that I identify with. But you know what I do identify with? Being afraid. Now tell me that
Yes.
those are just feelings, so that's
Yes.
what these words connote to me. They're
Yes.
the same word, but I get being afraid. Why? What are talk to me at your expertise on fear and being afraid, and why we don't do what we're supposed to do because it's either afraid or, as you were talking about people earlier, inconvenient.
Well, that's a fear though, right? They're trying to in order to be like, well, I don't like travel. It's like, well, but that's not the thing God's asking you to judge. That's not yours to decide. Right? We as human beings are deciding things that are none of our business. And so we're continuously deciding the little things like, oh, do I like travel or not? It's like, okay, what if that wasn't a decision to make, right? What if the travel, I don't want to travel, is not the point. The point is do you want to go visit India? Do you want to go to Greece? Do you want to go to Bali, right? Do you want to go to Japan, right? Do you want to experience other cultures? That's the question. That's at the heart of it. But what people do is they don't even allow themselves to imagine going to India or going to Bali or going anywhere because they don't like to travel. So then they cut off all that possibility. They cut it all off. Now, what if they were given a free cruise around the world, right? Would they go? Maybe. Or what if they've gotten a free trip to blah, blah? Maybe they'd get on the plane because it's free. And so that would take a barrier away. But the point is that people are deciding things that are really irrelevant and that really take a lot of brain power because we're only given so much energy every day. And when we're making these decisions that are irrelevant to our lives and they're not really the point, we're actually using energy that we could be using for grander and greater things, you know? So when you say I don't relate to fear, I think that's true for most people. I think it's true. It was definitely true.
Really?
Oh, 100,
I'm not a weirdo on that one.
No, my number one thing that I have to do when I talk to people is, I say fearless living. I would say most people say to me, oh, I don't have any fear. I'm not afraid. 100%. Because,
Really?
yeah,
Really?
100%. Because most people think of fear as terror, right? They think of it as terror, something that's really like, oh my God, I can't do it, right? That's what they think. Okay?
Okay.
They don't recognize that procrastination is driven by fear, and overwhelm is driven by fear, and perfectionism is driven by fear, and isolation is driven by fear, and overeating is driven by fear, right? So what my job is to help people, instead of shaming themselves and blaming themselves. Oh, I can't control my eating. I'm a horrible person. Oh, I can't do A, B, and C. I'm just weak. I'm just stupid. I'm just lazy. I'm just a procrastinator. Right? What we do is we inflict self-pain. We blame ourselves and shame ourselves into submission, into this smallness. And really what's between us and that is fear. So all of most people's problems, the way they judge themselves, are not actually real in the sense of, oh, I'm overeating, I'm a slob. Okay, so you're overeating, you're a slob. Okay, got it. Really what it is okay, what is your fear about being healthy and vibrant? Because a lot of people are living in great disappointment about their life. And to be healthy and vibrant may bring up that fear, that shame, that embarrassment, why didn't I do it sooner? So they'd rather stay stunted so they don't have to have much regret about the past. Because if I feel alive now, maybe I'll have so much regret. They're afraid to feel the feelings, afraid to feel the excitement for life, afraid to feel alive. Because
That
being
that breaks
alive,
my heart. That breaks my
it
heart.
it breaks my heart.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
I wrote this. I write a lot. My journals are long, and my journals are not activities; they're about thoughts. So I journal I have thought journals, and I wrote this journal after I listened. I was telling you before we got on air about a podcast that I listened to with Woody Allen, and Woody Allen, who's 89 years old and could be 65. I mean, he's just so bright, so right on top of things. And it made me think, I've been limiting myself to say, okay, what will I do until I'm 85? That's as long as I get to live until 85. And then, Woody Allen's going to says I'm going to live to 100, and he's 89. His parents lived late, and so I'm with that. So I'm giving myself, so I'm maybe not giving myself to 100, but I give myself to 96. I'm giving myself 20 years. And so I wrote, just, we're talking about being fearless. I wrote what this is not a bucket list, because bucket lists are activities. I'm more categories than I am
Hmm.
activities. But I
Hmm.
said, what would be on my list of things I want to do over the next couple of decades? And
Hmm.
this is coming in retirement, where you wanted to talk about retirement, as I've seen, official retirement. I've seen more than a decade of it now, and there comes this time in retirement where two things hit you that are really strong. One is that you have an empty calendar, so you feel useless.
Useless.
And then the other one is you're bored. You get where I don't have work, I don't have anything. What am I supposed to do? And so I had to wrestle. And believe me, as a very active person and a very, very proactive and goal oriented person, that was unusual for me. But then on the other hand, Rhonda, I didn't want to be productive. I didn't mind producing, but I didn't want to feel like I had to produce. And I don't,
Correct.
because
Yep.
I'm okay. So there are three categories. This is what I want to do in the next 20 years.
Okay.
Just in the next 20 years, so I'm just giving myself light, writing two books. I'm writing a
Okay.
book on a history of love, and then I want to write a memoir, because I have a really crazy life, and my son is all over. He said, Dad, we need to know where you've been and what you've done, because as an alcoholic, as a hippie in the 1960s, and one that lasted through the 70s, so I want to write a memoir. And the second one is I want to travel to new places, which for me is Asia. I'm a Europhile. Certain parts of Europe, um, and then I have my notes here, and I have them off to the side. Oh, and then 1 to 2 cruises per year. We just started cruising 3 years ago. We're not cruisers. We're just, no, we don't. We go on boats that are smaller boats. They take 400, 500 people, and we're just cruisers. And the third thing is, this is what I do regularly, Rhonda. This is what makes up my day. It's visiting movies, museums, and theater. If I get my weekly dose of movies, museum, and maybe I don't get a weekly dose of theater, but I will get a monthly or biweekly. We go to theater a lot, but those are what run my life. And there's no fear in there. There's only joy, and it keeps me busy. It's wonderful. But it's making a decision. These are the
Yes.
things I'm going to do. It's not what I'm not going to do. Like
Correct.
I'm not, like I make a decision, I'm not going to travel. I don't have that. I'm crazy. I'll try anything.
And that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's exactly lovely. I love it.
Oh, good, good. So that fits in your paradigm as well?
It does. I love it. It's just beautiful. What a beautiful life. And I love that you faced uselessness and boredom. Um, I think that those are the things that are just signals that it's like, okay, so, and boredom isn't wrong. You know that. Being useless is fine. Both of those things are fine. Um, and you then went to work and created a kind of a quote unquote structure for yourself, just three big pools that you can dip into.
That's good. I
And
like
they,
it. Three pools I can dip into. Yeah.
yeah, three pools you
Or
can
I can
dip into.
swim deeply.
Or you can swim deeply. I love it. That sounds lovely. I'm all for that. Sign me up.
Well, you're the
There you
signer.
go.
You're the signer up. Or yours is going to. We will keep chatting as you enter into these years, and see which is a ways away for you. But as you enter these years, we'll have to go over and take notes.
Well, this is the thing for me. Like you have your three buckets. I feel I'm about to turn 65 since we're confessing our ages. I'm about to turn 65 and
And you look,
I
you've been told, but you do not, you look incredible. I mean, you look
thank you.
awesome.
I don't have wrinkles. That is true. I mean, people are like, Jesus. I go, I know. I don't. I'm like my grandma.
Genetics.
My grandma died when she was, I think, 89 or 91. And, she still didn't have any wrinkles, right? It's that finished skin. I have finished skin. But hopefully it'll last. Hopefully it'll last. But what I'm compelled to do is I have 30 years of work. I have 30 years of classes, 30 years of coaching, 30 years of teaching, 30 years of leading, 30 years, right? I have 30 years of content in my beautiful box. It's my Dropbox. I use Box instead of Dropbox, but 30 years of things in there, videos, audios, classes, transcripts, book starting, and I feel driven and compelled to get that all out into the public so that if something happens to me, that everything that I need to say can be found. Again, it's not that I'm saying that, oh, everybody needs to know what Rhonda Britten thinks, but this is my contribution to,
Right.
right? This is my contribution. So I'm not saying I'm the only way or the right way. It's just my contribution about fearlessness, because I do believe the way I think about fear is very unique. And I've been on, I mean, everybody who hears me talk about fear says the same thing. It's like, oh my God, I never heard it that way. It's like, I know I have a unique perception.
Oh, you got to tell us, Rhonda. How come I don't know your unique view? What is unique? Well, you say that word, now
Well,
you got my attention.
well, it's very unique. I created something called the Wheel of Fear and the Wheel of Freedom. Did we talk about that last time? I
We
don't know
did
if we
it.
did.
It was on the notes, and we never talked about it.
Okay. So I've created something called the Wheel of Fear and Wheel of Freedom. And basically, God gave it to me, by the way. So whenever I say I created something, just know God was like, hey, Rhonda, write this down, right?
Okay.
So, but I do say I, because I can't say, well, God told me, God told me, God told me. I'm just going to take the credit and go like, I am a vehicle for God. I'm the one that wrote it down. I'll say it was me, right? Otherwise it gets long and convoluted like it is now. But I created, there's something called the Wheel of Fear and Wheel of Freedom. And
Uh-huh.
my philosophy is, if you understand how fear works, if you understand the mechanics of fear, the system that fear has, the framework fear uses, then looking at fear, seeing fear, identifying fear really becomes a very simple cerebral exercise. You can see it. You can see it unfold. It no longer is confounding. It's no longer confusing. It literally takes away, why am I like this? You will never ask that question again. Like, why am I like this? I'll tell you, it's the Wheel of Fear. I'll tell you exactly what it is. And the Wheel of Freedom. So the Wheel of Freedom is the way to access your soul. When you forget, when you're in fear, we forget ourselves, right? We cut ourselves off from ourselves. We cut ourselves off from source, from soul, etc. Well, in order to find that when you're feeling cut off is to get on your Wheel of Freedom. And what most people need to see is actually how fear works so they can identify it instead of shaming themselves and beating themselves up. So the Wheel of Fear stops that negative self-talk, intercepts all of the I am wrong, I am bad, there's something awful about me, right? And you now see it as a mechanism You can follow the mechanism. You can see where you are on the mechanism. You can locate yourself. And then you can go, oh, well, I just have to get on my wheel of freedom. It's like, yeah, that's all you have to do is get on your wheel of freedom. So it becomes a very simple, I'm not saying it's easy. It is simple to see what's happening wherever you are. There's no, like I said, there's no more why. Why am I doing this? It's like, well, it's the wheel of fear. That's why you're doing it. So everybody has what I call a core trigger. Now, triggers, I've been doing this 30 years and the word trigger was not commonly known then. And now it is, people say the word triggered. Well, I believe that you have one core trigger that activates all the other triggers.
Oh.
So there's one core trigger underneath it, the identity trigger, that really is at the heart of what keeps you trapped. Okay. And when you can identify that, and by the way, what you think it is not. So fear does not want you to find it, because if you find your core trigger, then it cannot keep you safe. So fear does not want you to find it. So it wants you to focus.
Fear is trying to keep you safe.
That's correct. Bottom line, fear.
So it's a protection methodology.
And it loves you. It loves you. It loves you. So think about it this way. I have a belief that I believe that God is omniscient, omnipresent. I believe God created everything.
Okay.
Well, if God created everything, then God also created fear. Okay. So think about that.
Okay.
Okay.
Got that.
So there's nothing like there. And if God created everything, there's nothing to hate, right? It's something to learn from. It's something to say no. You might say no to it, right? But everything is here for our greatest unfoldment, right? And so fear loves you. It thinks you're awesome. And it just doesn't want you to be in pain and hurt. So anything in the unknown that it cannot guarantee your success, guarantee you'll feel good, guarantee it, it's like, well, then we better not go there. So the only reason that fear, the only criteria fear uses is, did I keep her alive or is she dead? Well, she's alive, so I'm doing a good job. That's what fear thinks. I'm doing an amazing job. Rhonda Britten's alive. Yay.
But it doesn't. But she doesn't care about your emotions.
Fear could care less if you're happy. Fear could care less if you live your purpose. Fear could care less about a success. Fear only cares, is she alive or is she dead? Okay. Now this is where it gets tricky, because we think of that as physical fear, right? Like we have physical fears. Most of us can admit, like, oh, I'm afraid of snakes. I don't like heights. But what really drives our day to day is emotional fears. That fear of rejection, the fear of failure, the fear of success, the fear of loss, the fear of being judged, right? So all of these fears are really what drive us during the day. And all of those fears pop up when we're about to go into the unknown, okay? Now, that unknown can be a new thought. If you haven't dated for 20 years and you even think about dating, that is in the unknown. That is the unknown even before you take an action. So the only way that fear goes, well, I know that I've done good. She's alive now. That means everything she's done up until now is good. Okay, I'll let her do all these things. But you can't do anything else because I don't know if you're going to be alive over here. So you have a new thought, business idea. I'm going to date. Oh, I'm going to really lose weight this time. Fear goes, well, yeah, but I don't know if I'm going to keep you alive during that. I better shut this down. She can't go off and start like losing weight, or she can't start off and like travel, because there's gonna be danger there. Oh my God, I can't keep her safe, right? So fear creates those emotional fears that keep us stuck.
Let me pause here, because that is so powerful. I want everybody to take time and catch. I have never, ever, ever thought fear loves me. I just have never thought that. But that is but once you state it and then explain it, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. Fear cannot be my enemy.
No.
It can serve as my enemy the way I take it if I obey it, but it is not intended that way. It's intended to protect me, keep me alive, and keep me from the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
That's right. Exactly. Because fear is part of our neurobiology. So there's no getting rid of it, right? There's no getting rid of it. It's really building a relationship with it and learning and being able to see it for what it is. Because when you can see it for what it is, it loses all of its power. It loses all its power. It loses all of its like, oh my God, right? It loses all of it. Doesn't mean you're not going to still have fear, because you're still going to take what I call stretch, risk, and dies. You got to go in the unknown if you want to feel alive.
What was that?
I have an exercise called stretch, risk, or die.
Stretch, risk, or die.
Yes, and I'll be happy to give it to your listeners. Go to fearlessliving.org/risk, R-I-S-K, fearlessliving.org/risk, R-I-S-K, and you can get my free Stretch, Risk, and Die course. And it's 3 15-minute videos. I explain Stretch, Risk, and Die itself on because this is what people do, Charlie, is they go, travel. Oh, I don't want to do it, right? Well, is travel, if you broke travel down into its steps, which ones are stretches, which ones risks, and which ones feel like dies? So anything that you go, I can't do that, or I could never date, or I can't go and apologize to that person, or I can't, again, whatever we say we can't do. When you see it through the lens of stretch, risk, and die, it becomes very simple. It becomes not this big thing anymore. It becomes a very simple process. And at the end of the third video, so there's 3 50-minute videos. At the end of the third video, I actually break down the Wheel of Fear, so you can go and watch it, so you can see it. And soon, it's not out yet, but soon I'm going to have a fear quiz, so you can help you identify what that core trigger is, to get you closer to the possibility of what it is. So
I want to get to, you're on there. You came back with this word because we didn't really, I don't think we really got to an answer on the word, but it's now even more significant. And that is the core trigger.
Yes.
What is, how would I identify my core trigger? I'm not really a fearful person as per se, but I do have things I'm not doing because I have a fear. How do I get to this core trigger of fear? What is the core trigger of fear?
The core trigger is the thing that drives you. It is your identity fear. It is the thing that you do not want anyone to think about you. You do not want anyone to feel about you. And you don't even know what that word is. So for instance, I will give you my word. My core trigger is loser. Okay. Now, has anyone called me a loser my whole life? No, they have not. I'm a straight A student. I'm an Emmy winner. I've got 4 best-selling books, right? Loser is nowhere near me. Yet, that is the thing unconsciously that I have lived my whole life around not being. Okay? I have created a life to prove to you and to me that I'm not a loser. Now, this is the thing. Loser in and of itself is nothing, right? Like, while I was going through my dark night, loser was right there. Like loser was right there. And I embraced loser. Loser is nothing to fear anymore. Me feeling like a loser or being seen as a loser is I'm no longer afraid to be seen that way. Because the pathway to me becoming who I'm meant to be in order to become depthful, philosophical, etc., maybe I had to sit, when I was going through my dark night, I sat down for 3 years. And definitely people that I knew would be like, well, what's wrong with Rhonda? What's her problem? She's doing this. She's so self-indulgent for 3 years sitting there. Like, you know what I mean? Like people, right? Because they don't know what's going on internally for me. They're living a life on a treadmill. So they see me sitting down and they're like, what the heck's wrong with her? There's nothing wrong with me. Nothing wrong at all. But I was willing to be perceived as a loser. And that was an existential crisis, because our core trigger is that existential crisis. The very thing that if we are seen that way, we will die. And our life has no meaning.
That is brilliant, because I look at, I don't think my core trigger is hidden, because it was so obvious as a kid that this childhood thing, that I was abandoned and rejected as a kid. And I mean, from like 3 years old to 7 years old, they were huge issues of abandonment and rejection. And that is my core fear. And I'm going to tell you a story, and it came from a podcast of, I fear being rejected. And that is, and how many times am I rejected? How many times have you been called a loser? How many times have I been? And I
Yeah,
take
zero, like
and,
zero.
and I take anything as a
Mm-hmm.
rejection, and I
Mm-hmm.
will take it that personally. And so I have to be so careful. But this podcast that I did with this guy, oh my goodness, I can't think of his name. He was from Australia, and it was an author on happiness or something like that. It was kind of a hokey title, but it was really good. It was really good stuff. And he said, what if you took, instead of making your fear of rejection as this something you've been trying to manage, instead it is you. You have been rejected. You are rejected. So my core self is a rejected self. And when I was able to finally grasp that, identify with that, and live with that, that my core identity is rejected. And what I'm living my life out is to remove that and to live a life of, because I'm big into freedom as well. We sing this a similar song because freedom is big for me. And I believe exactly that if I identify as rejected and I'm moving into freedom, then I don't worry about rejection anymore. But that's also, I don't delve into, like, I don't read reviews of my podcasts or my blogs. I don't even look at them. I don't want to know what
Of
good are
course.
they going to do me, unless they're
Exactly.
helpful critique.
Exactly. Exactly. So I will say, I will let you have rejected as your trigger right now.
Oh, right
Um,
now, good. You're going to
right
challenge
now,
me.
because you're willing to take it. Because in the beginning, many people aren't willing to take the one that's really theirs. They can only take the one that they're willing to accept. So I will give you rejected, and it might end up being your core trigger, but I'm also saying it may not be. Just saying.
Just saying. So
Just
okay.
saying. Just saying because
Just
because
saying.
right
But you can't
because
you can't just leave me there.
well, Charlie, I have to because our time is over. I guess you'll have to have me back on, and we'll have to delve deeper.
Our time
But
is over,
but
isn't
but
it?
all I'm saying is, if you were called lazy your whole life, your trigger is not lazy. If you've been called stupid your whole life, your trigger is not stupid. You know that one. That's familiar to you. You know it. The wheel of fear in our body and brain are way smarter than that. So again, it may be you may have create. You might know your core trigger. That might be it, and it may not be. That's all I'll
Okay.
say.
We're gonna end with that. You don't know until you watch 3 videos. And then
Well,
the
no, I mean,
answer will come to
well,
you.
there's a process I take people through, obviously,
Yeah.
because the core trigger doesn't want to be found. So it's not like I can just whip it out. It goes through a process. And, that process is meant to reveal, more and more of the truth of, what you're really running from. And I created a quiz, and based on, I did a whole bunch of research on it and a whole bunch of beta testing. And I'm hoping that people can find it. I don't want to say faster. Well, I guess it is faster, but closer to the real one, closer to the best one, the real one that's driving you.
God, and you know what? I'm just looking at our show notes, at the links that I have for you, and I have your book, I have your website, and you know what I have? Your free gift of Risk. So it's already on the links. Now
Oh,
I'm
good.
now I'm actually going to go there. Rhonda Britten,
Well,
you are
thank
you
you
are
so much.
just way too cool. I know you've got an appointment, so I don't want to hold you any longer, but thank you for taking time with me to be on our show.
It was a joy, Charlie. Thank you so much for having me. And be fearless, everyone. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear.
And everybody, guess what? There's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. And thank you for not being fearful, for tuning in to the next chapter with Charlie. And until next, this is Charlie Hedges signing off. Bye for now.